Tonight on The Real News, buzz in the mainstream about colony collapse disorder, the new Glass-Steagall, and your weekly cancer cocktail coming up. So that was an instrumental from a new song from Capital Cities called Safe and Sound. I like that song. Anyway, we have a great show for you here tonight. Starting with colony collapse disorder. It finally makes some mainstream headlines when it hit the newsstands this Friday on Time Magazine. They had an 8-page spread cover story. It features testimonials from beekeepers who are ready to quit the business after repeated mass colony deaths throughout the years. This has been a problem for quite a while now. It's very interesting, and we covered this story for you numerous times before. More recently, last week, when we talked about the role fungicides play in colony collapse disorder, in addition to the nicotine-like nicotinoid pesticides. Bee colony collapses are more complex than we originally thought. Scientists have tried repeatedly to identify the root cause for the beehive collapses, ranging from certain classes of pesticides to parasites or nutrition. So academic researchers from the University of Maryland and federal scientists from the Department of Agriculture decided to collect pollen from 7 major types of crops along the East Coast where CCD has been especially destructive, where bees had been in serious decline, and fed them to healthy bees. The pollen fed to the healthy bees contained an average of 9 different types of pesticides and fungicides. One pollen sample had 21 different chemicals. The researchers discovered that the healthy bees that ate the fungicides, which are supposedly harmless to bees, were actually 3 times more likely to become infected with a parasite that's known to cause colony collapse disorder, according to the study in PLOS1, an open access journal. It's also, you can find that on US News or QZ.com. So you may have heard on the news a vague yet specific terror threat. Things going on in Austin, Texas, and all the embassies being shut down and continuing to be shut down throughout last week. President Obama on Tuesday went on Jay Leno to say that Americans aren't being spied on. We actually have a clip from last Tuesday's episode of The Tonight Show. The Tonight Show being one of the most watched television shows in America. So if you want to affect the status quo, that is the show to go on. So I'm going to bring that up for you. So here it is, the president on Jay Leno's The Tonight Show on Tuesday.
Making sure that we're not reacting in a way that somehow shuts us down.
Right.
And that's the right reaction. Terrorists depend on the idea that we're going to be terrorized, and we're going to live our lives, and the odds of people dying in a terrorist attack obviously are still a lot lower than in a car accident, unfortunately. Sure. But there are things that we can do to make sure that we're keeping the pressure on these networks that would try to injure Americans. And the first thing I think about when I wake up and the last thing I think about when I go to bed is making sure that I'm doing everything I can to keep Americans safe.
Safe to say that. Safe to say that we learned about these threats through the NSA intelligence program. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, this intelligence gathering that we do is a critical component of counterterrorism. And obviously with Mr. Snowden and the disclosures of classified information, it's raised a lot of questions for people. But what I said as soon as it happened, I continue to believe in, which is a lot of these programs were put in place before I came in. I had some skepticism, and I think we should have a healthy skepticism about what government's doing. I had the programs reviewed. We put in some additional safeguards to make sure that there's federal court oversight as well as congressional oversight, that there is no spying on Americans. We don't have a domestic spying program. What we do have are some mechanisms where we can track
there is no spying
a
on
phone
Americans.
number or an email address that we know is connected to some sort of terrorist threat. And that information is useful. But what I've said before, I want to make sure I repeat, and that is we should be skeptical about the potential encroachments on privacy. None of the revelations show that government has actually abused these powers, but they're pretty significant powers. And I've been talking to Congress and civil libertarians and others about, are there additional ways that we can make sure that people know nobody's listening to your phone call, but we do want to make sure that after a Boston bombing, for example, we've got the phone numbers of those two brothers.
Right.
We want to be able to make sure, did they call anybody else? Are there networks in New York? Are there networks elsewhere that we have to roll up? And if we can make sure that there's confidence on the part of the American people that there's oversight, then I think we can make sure that we're properly balancing our liberty and our security.
When we come back, I want to ask you about Russia and Snowden. I hit on something in the monologue which just seems incredible to me, and I want to get your thoughts on that.
Sure.
More with the president, and we come back with it.
So that was President Obama Tuesday the 6th on Jay Leno. And, so he said that supposedly NSA isn't spying on Americans. Shortly after that, his former advisor for Green Jobs, Van Jones, quickly spoke out to ridicule the statement. And I'm sure he's not the only one. I think it's also ridiculous. But actually, speaking of that, I got a letter in the mail regarding my privacy from my cell phone provider. Anyway, it reads, it's from July 1st, 2013. Dear valued customer, we know your privacy is important, so we've made it a priority to talk to you about it. We're revising our privacy policy to make it easier to understand, and we want to point out 2 new programs that could help us and other businesses serve you better. The first program will make it reports available to businesses. Oh, these reports will contain anonymous information about groups of customers, such as how they collectively use our products and services. The second program will use local geography as a factor in delivering online and mobile ads to the people who might find them the most useful. As always, we follow important principles to keep your trust. Anyway, this is back to Jay Leno and Obama.
Or what do you call him?
Well, we don't know yet exactly what he did, other than what he said on the internet, and it's important for me not to prejudge something.
Gotcha.
Hopefully, at some point, he'll go to trial, and he will have a lawyer and due process, and we can make those decisions. I can tell you that there are ways, if you think that the government is abusing a program, of coming forward. In fact, I, through executive order, signed whistleblower protection for intelligence officers or people who are involved in the intelligence industry. So you don't have to break the law. You don't have to divulge information that could compromise American security. You can come forward, come to the appropriate individuals and say, look, I've got a problem with what's going on here. I'm not sure whether it's being done properly. If, in fact, the allegations are true, then he didn't do that. And that is a huge problem, because a lot of what we do depends on terrorist networks not knowing that, in fact, we may be able to access their information.
Let me add, now he was a contracted employee.
Yeah.
And it seems the government has a lot of these. I remember when I was coming up, my brother was in ROTC. And in those days, they would take college students, you get in the Army would train you.
Right.
This guy's being paid money by an outside firm, living in Hawaii, you got the stripper girlfriend. All of a sudden, you're all upset with what the government is doing.
Right.
And you go to another country. I mean, in my era, Daniel Ellsberg stood in the town square and said, I've got this, got arrested, New York Times. I mean, should we go back to not using so many, whether it's Blackwater or any of these contracts, these people who are Hessians, they get paid?
No, I think you're raising an important issue. We've been trying to reduce the reliance on contractors. Some of the contractors do a great job, and they're patriots, and they're trying to support our mission. Sometimes they can do it more efficiently or effectively if they got some specialized knowledge. But one of the things that I've asked our team to look at is when it comes to intelligence, should we in fact be farming that much stuff out? And there are a lot of extraordinarily capable folks in our military, in our government, who can do this and probably do it cheaper. And then benefit from the training that they get so that when they transfer,
now
they're in a better position.
Were you surprised that Russia granted Snowden asylum?
I was disappointed because even though we don't have an extradition treaty with them, traditionally we have tried to respect if there's a lawbreaker or an alleged lawbreaker in their country. We evaluate it and we try to work with them. They didn't do that with us, and in some ways it's reflective of some underlying challenges that we've had with Russia lately. A lot of what's been going on hasn't been major breaks in the relationship, and they still help us on supplying our troops in Afghanistan. They're still helping us on counterterrorism work. They were helpful after the Boston bombing in that investigation. And so there's still a lot of business that we can do with them, but there have been times where they slip back into Cold War thinking and a Cold War mentality. And what I consistently say to them and what I say to President Putin is that's the past. And we've got to think about the future, and there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to cooperate more effectively than we do.
And Putin seems to me like one of those old school KGB guys.
Well, he headed up the KGB.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. He has that mentality. I mean, look at this picture here. You two, you look like me and the NBC executives. What is going on there? And that doesn't look like a friendly picture.
Well, the truth is that when we have meetings, we can have some pretty blunt exchanges and animated exchanges, but he's got that seems to be his preferred style during press conferences is kind of sitting back and not looking too excited. Now, part of it is he's not accustomed to having press conferences where you've got a bunch of reporters yelling questions at you.
Now, the G20 summit is in St. Petersburg next. Are you going to that, and will you meet?
I will be going to that. I will be going to that because the G20 summit is the main forum where we talk about the economy, the world economy, with all the top economic powers in the world. So it's not something unique to Russia. They're hosting it this year, but it's important for us as the leading economy in the world to make sure that we're there. In part because creating jobs, improving our economy, building up our manufacturing base, increasing wages, all those things now depend on how we compete in this global economy. And when you've got problems in Europe or China's slowing down, that has an impact here in the United States. And I've been saying for the entire tenure of my presidency that my number one priority at all times is how do we create an economy where if you work hard in this country, you can succeed. And there are a lot of things that we can do here in this country, but we've also got to pay attention to what's going on inside it.
Van Jones, United States advisor to the president for green jobs. United States President Barack Obama insists his government isn't in the business of domestic surveillance, but one of his former advisors says that's contrary to the truth. He said, quote, "Everybody knows I love this president, but this is ridiculous." Former special advisor for green jobs Van Jones said Wednesday on CNN, the day after this story came out, where the president denied all claims that NSA is spying on Americans. First of all, he said, we do have a domestic spying program, and what we need to be able to do is figure out how to balance these things, not pretend like there's no balancing to be done. We talked about the name of that program last week, It's called X Key Score. We talked about that here on The Real News. Anyway, the remark made by Jones, who currently serves as senior fellow at the Center for American Progress, directly contrasts with comments Obama made earlier this week, or the night before, to a late-night talk show host Jay Leno. We don't have a domestic spying program, as you just heard Obama tell Jay Leno during the Tuesday night interview. What we do have are some mechanisms where we can track a phone number and email address that we know is connected to some sort of terrorist threat. We've also gone over the analyst list of terms that could deem you a terrorist, and those include pork and cloud, some of the more obscure references. Speaking to CNN's Jake Tapper, Jones jabbed the president's remarks while also assaulting the commander-in-chief's record with regards to charging intelligence leakers like Bradley Manning and Edward Snowden with espionage. Despite campaigning on a platform of utmost transparency, Obama and his administration have so far charged more leakers with espionage than all previous presidents combined twice over. Speaking to CNN, Jones challenged the president's past behavior towards whistleblowers and suggested that Snowden, the 30-year-old leaker of classified National Security Agency documents, stands little chance of a fair trial in America. But much more important, he said. Something else that I thought that was really awful, Jones continued. He said that if somebody like Snowden wanted to be a whistleblower, they could have gone ahead. Well, hold on a second. That is, you are right now prosecuting more whistleblowers, not only than any American president, than every American president combined, ever. So you can't then come out on Jay Leno and yuck it up and say, well, whistleblowers, come on out and we'll treat you right, because you haven't been doing that, which is pretty much what I was going to say, America. But last week, Russia approved Snowden's request for asylum by allowing him a 1-year stay overseas as charges of spying loom stateside. Meanwhile, days earlier, a military judge convicted Army Private First Class Bradley Manning with multiple counts of espionage for his role in sharing classified material with the anti-secrecy website WikiLeaks. Manning's court-martial is currently in its sentencing phase and could end with Colonel Denise Lind sending him to prison for a maximum of 90 years, people. So if you expose any national war crimes where innocents are being murdered mercilessly like a video game, you could get 90 years in prison. Anyway, also in related news, LavaBit, Ed Snowden's email provider, shut down last week after controversy in lieu of espionage charges being set against him. If you have LavaBit as your email provider and you went to lavabit.com last week, you would have read this, a letter from the facilitator or the owner and operator of LavaBit, a limited liability company, Ladar Levison. Levison. It reads, "My fellow users, I have been forced to make a difficult decision to become complicit in crimes against the American people or walk away from nearly 10 years of hard work by shutting down LavaBit. After significant soul searching, I have decided to suspend operations. I wish that I could legally share with you the events that led to my decision. I cannot. I feel you deserve to know what's going on. The First Amendment is supposed to guarantee me the freedom to speak out in situations like this. Unfortunately, Congress has passed laws that say otherwise. As things currently stand, I cannot share my experiences over the last 6 weeks, even though I have twice made the appropriate requests. What's going to happen now? We've already started preparing the paperwork needed to continue to fight for the Constitution in the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. A favorable decision would allow me to resurrect LavaBit as an American company. This experience has taught me one very important lesson. Without congressional action or strong judicial precedent, I would strongly recommend against anyone trusting their private data to a company with physical ties to the United States. Sincerely, Ladar Levison, owner and operator of LavaBit LLC. Defending the Constitution is expensive. They add you can help by donating to the LavaBit Legal Defense Fund. Who knows? I mean, he could be charged as an accessory for espionage. the way things are going now. But LavaBit is not the only email company that is said to shut down for what seems like refusing to give up its users' personal information. According to the New York Times, we don't like to get too much information from what would otherwise be known as a liberal media source. But we have cited Fox News. In fact, we had a story from Fox News last week. But anyway, the shutdown of 2 email providers on Thursday illustrates why it is so hard for internet companies to challenge secret government surveillance to protect their customers' data from federal authorities. The 2 companies essentially committed suicide. LavaBit, a text-based service that was reportedly used by Edward J. Snowden, leaker who had worked as National Security Agency contractor, announced the suspension of its service Thursday afternoon. In a blog post, the company's owner, Ladar Levison, suggested, although did not say explicitly, that he had received a secret search order and was choosing to shut the service to avoid being complicit in crimes against the American people. Within hours, a fast-growing Maryland-based startup called Silent Circle also closed its email service and destroyed its email servers. The company said it saw the writing on the wall, while also making it plain that it had not yet received any court orders soliciting user data. Mike Janke, the chief executive, said the company's customers included heads of state, members of royalty, and government agencies. The company will continue its encrypted phone and text messaging service. In effect, both businesses destroyed their assets, in part or in full, to avoid turning over their customers' data. Such public displays are far more difficult for large companies to make, and help explain why most public efforts to challenge secret government orders have come from small companies and nonprofits. Providers are in a bind, observed Oren Kerr, a law professor who specializes in surveillance law at George Washington University. Quote, they need to respect the privacy rights of customers in order to keep customers, but they also have an obligation to comply with the law. A small company can say, rather than comply with the law, we will go under. But Verizon is not going to do that. He added, the government usually has an easier time with large companies because they have more of a long-term need to have good relationships with the government. Large internet companies have moved more quietly and cautiously, addressing consumers' concerns about government requests only after information about secret orders was leaked by Mr. Snowden. This week, technology industry executives and lobbyists attend meetings at the White House. In an effort to address public concern about the government surveillance programs, President Obama on Friday announced the creation of a task force to advise the government about how to balance security and privacy. He also said he supported a proposal to change the procedures of the secret court that approves electronic spying under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. The level of secrecy appeared to be a particular frustration for Mr. Levison. On the LavaBit site Thursday afternoon, Mr. Levison said he was legally prohibited from explaining why he had been compelled to suspend operations. Quote, I wish I could legally share with you the events that led to my decision. I cannot, he wrote. So, Silent Circle's chief executive, Mr. Janke, said executives at his company, the founders, include Philip R. Zimmerman, who created the original email encryption protocol known as Pretty Good Privacy, had opted to follow LavaBit's example even before being served with a government order. He said the incident was a reminder of a fundamental flaw with email technology. An aggressive government, he said, can extract email data from any company, no matter how good the company's encryption tools. Keys to unlock its customers' encrypted communications had been stored on the company's servers. Silent Circle destroyed that data, the digital equivalent of a library setting fire to its membership records to keep the government from knowing who checked out the books. Silent Circle's text and phone service uses somewhat different technology. The encryption keys are generated between 2 users as they are communicating and then destroyed. It is aptly called ephemeral encryption. Bruce Schneider, a cryptographer, applauded LavaBit's decision, pointing out that its self-destruction was made possible because it had no shareholders to answer to. Could you imagine what would happen if Mark Zuckerberg or Larry Page decided to shut down Facebook or Google rather than answer national security letters? They couldn't. They would be fired, Mr. Schneider wrote on his blog. When the small companies can no longer operate, it's another step towards the consolidation of the surveillance of society. Before LavaBit, there was Calix Internet Access, a small internet service provider and web hosting company that challenged the constitutionality of a secret national security letter in 2004. 4 Connecticut librarians likewise won their gag order challenge under a so-called national security letter in 2006, and a similar challenge was brought by a nonprofit digital library called the Internet Archive. The government had sought information about one of its users and won its challenge to a gag order in 2008. So you see, there is a precedence here. The most closely watched ruling on secret orders came this year. The San Francisco-based Electronic Frontier Foundation appealed to a United States district judge to lift a gag order issued by the Federal Bureau of Investigation through a national security letter. The court said the gag order was unconstitutional. Large companies have pushed back more quietly. Yahoo is the only company known to have challenged a gag order from the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, and a coalition of companies, including Google and Microsoft, which sit on a trove of personal communications, have appealed to the Obama administration to be able to disclose just how many Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act court orders they receive. According to Justice Department figures in 2012, government authorities made 1,856 data requests under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, the vast majority for electronic surveillance, and another 15,229 requests through national security letters. Nicholas Merrill, the owner of Calix, received one such letter in early 2004 under the Patriot Act. He closed his business within months. I was terrified they were going to drag me away, he said Friday. It took him years to challenge the court order. He still cannot discuss its contents. He can only acknowledge its existence. His actions, he said, were possible only because his company was small and he was not beholden to shareholders. In a way, being a small company is quite liberating, he said. Mr. Merrill said he immediately empathized with Mr. Levison's plight. Quote, I would imagine he feels so strongly about this that he's willing to sacrifice his own business and he's willing to risk angering all his client base for this basic principle, he said. I can totally relate to where he's coming from. Nicole Perroth contributed that reporting to the New York Times. So that's just the state of affairs of what's going on. I did find it quite interesting in the Jay Leno interview how Obama said, if you're a whistleblower, come forward. Nothing bad's going to happen to you. We're going to protect you. Protect you with bars and cement. Anyway, in more news, we have a video for you later. We have your weekly cancer cocktail coming up tonight in food news. And also, Philippines officials say that they will soon begin negotiations with the United States on a larger American military presence to help deter what they say is an increasing Chinese aggression in Philippine-claimed waters in the South China Sea. This comes after there were protests regarding genetically modified foods in the Philippines. So more on that in just a moment. We're going to take a short break. we're back. More information on Snowden. His father this week was granted a U.S. passport so he could go visit him in Russia, where he was granted diplomatic immunity from extradition from the U.S. We also have a Bradley Manning update. Some good news, in a sense. A judge rejects government claim that Manning leaks had a chilling effect on foreign relations. This is from Russia Today. The judge presiding over Bradley Manning's sentencing hearing has rejected government testimony claiming that Manning's disclosures to WikiLeaks clearly resulted in a, quote, chilling effect on U.S. foreign relations. The military judge decided that the evidence in question would have only been admissible had the so-called chilling effect come directly after the information disclosed by Manning was published. More than 700,000 diplomatic cables were leaked by Manning, along with battlefield reports from Iraq and Afghanistan and helicopter video footage. The information was first published by WikiLeaks, with the New York Times, the Washington Post, and other media outlets soon following. Judge Colonel Denise Lind refused the prosecution's assertion that the cables, which were published over 2 years ago, remain a point of reluctance for foreign citizens when they are approached by U.S. officials overseas. State Department Undersecretary Patrick Kennedy testified that the information is still a hindrance to U.S. policymaking. Oh, you mean people don't like war criminals and war crimes and killing innocent people? Prior to Wednesday's decision, Lind granted the defense team a victory by cutting Manning's largest maximum sentence from 136 years to 90 years. She determined that some of the 20 counts that Manning had been found guilty of could be merged because they were repetitive. In a motion from the defense, attorneys wrote that the government takes what should be a 10-year offense and makes it a 20-year offense and unfairly increases PFC Manning's punitive exposure. Manning's lawyers released a schedule for 20 sentencing witnesses they plan to call in the next phase of the sentencing. Leaked conversations, which were subsequently published, included U.S. State Department employees bluntly discussing world leaders, some of whom already had fractured relationships with the United States government. In one leaked cable, diplomatic officials were heard speaking about then Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi being accompanied by a senior Ukrainian nurse described as a voluptuous blonde during his 2009 trip to New York for a United Nations session. The New York Times reported during the same visit, Gaddafi was forbidden from visiting Ground Zero, the site where the World Trade Center was brought down in a terrorist attack on September 11, 2001. In another cable, former French President Nicolas Sarkozy was described as having a, quote, thin-skinned and authoritarian personal style, quote, end quote. After State Department employees witnessed him berating other French officials, another cable said that Sarkozy was a, quote, naked emperor. A 2008 dispatch from U.S. Embassy in Moscow described then Russian President Dmitry Medvedev was afraid and hesitant compared to Prime Minister Vladimir Putin's alpha dog persona. Other communication remarked that Medvedev plays Robin to Putin's Batman. It sounds like political celebrity gossip to me, but that's just me. Anyway, Thursday, August 8th, thousands of protesters shut down part of the Chicago Loop, protesting the 40th ALEC conference at the Palmer House Hilton. ALEC is a wedding of corporate lobbyists and state legislators who work together to pass laws that enrich corporations at the expense of constituents. You can read about how Chicago has been implementing ALEC style education reforms in the Midwest that led to the closure of 50 public schools. And in other news, Uruguay is to sell marijuana at low price of 25 or $2.50 per gram to compete with the black market. National Geographic published an article this week or today with the Fukushima radioactive water leak that it's coming quite a problem. So more on that. This is world news here on The Real News on Occupy Boston Radio, radio for the 99% home of the horizontal democracy. You can check us out on the Facebook page, www.facebook.com/The Real News Crew, news with a Z. Or you can just do a search, The Real News, spelled like The Real News. We're also on Sirius XM satellite radio. If you have the internet option, you can listen to us. We're also on Winamp, on Shoutcast Radio. If you go on Winamp under the Revolution category, we are broadcasting to you live at 96 kilobytes per second. Again, this is OBR.FM, Occupy Boston Radio, and you're listening to The Real News. So, I'm going to get right into food news tonight. We have GMO updates. If you were in New Hampshire this weekend, there was a rally. So I hope you got to make it out to that. The GMO labeling battle moves to New Hampshire. Are you in? The rally march was held Saturday, August 10th at 12 noon at the New Hampshire State House at 107 North Main Street in Concord. According to the Facebook event page, it had several attendees, had 56 people going, and the bill it's regarding is House Bill 660. If you didn't know much about GMOs, or House Bill 660, New Hampshire's pending law that will require GMOs in our foods to be labeled. This is a good opportunity to learn more. It is a good opportunity to show support for New Hampshire's labeling effort. They said that they will rally in front of the State House where they would have a few short speeches. And we posted this on the Facebook page for you, so that's more information that you can find. And if you want to help out with the effort, you can send an email to info@New Hampshire or NH Right to Know GMOs.org. That's NHRIGHTTOKNOWGMOS.org. Some good stuff. Also, in GMO labeling news, GMO update. Washington State. This fall, voters in Washington State will decide on ballot initiative 522, the Washington Right to Know Genetically Engineered Food Act. The Bronner family of Dr. Bronner's Magic Soaps talks about why supporting Washington State's GMO labeling initiative, or Yes on 522, is so crucial, and why your donation at any level is important to the cause. So this is David Bronner, president of Dr. Bronner's Magic Soaps, along with Lisa Bronner, author of Going Green with a Bronner Mom blog, and Michael Bronner, vice president of Dr. Bronner's Magic Soaps. You may have seen their products on store shelves. Castile soaps with the crazy labels, having words of wisdom squeezed into every corner. They have long been advocates for health and the environment, but now they're actually speaking on behalf of Yes on 522, which also is good for the economy. It's good for the environment, and it helps people better vote with their wallets, because what we're finding is more and more there are poisons and viruses being put into the food source that previously did not exist before. So I'm going to bring up that video for you right now.
What Initiative 522 does is that it gives consumers the informed choice whether or not to buy genetically engineered foods or not. It gives them the power and the knowledge. Just like we have the right to know whether or not an ingredient is artificial, whether or not orange juice is from concentrate, whether or not a fish is farm-raised or wild-caught.
We need to know whether or not the food we eat has the genetic DNA of something else, something that's not, at the moment, on the label, such as a bacteria or another species.
This is about chemical companies buying up the seed companies and engineering resistance to their pesticides and their herbicides.
If there's any question about whether or not this issue is relevant nationally when it's being voted on in Washington State, let's look at what the opposition thinks.
As a movement, we've learned from California. Let's get the money in early. Let's get them powered up.
We want to make sure we have the money early, so whatever attacks they send our way, always will be able to refute them.
This is not some kind of plot by trial lawyers to get rich driving up your food costs. It's very easy to communicate that to voters. The polling says they're with us, 66% against 22%, 48% strong support. We have them, but we need to meet them where they're at, and that's watching the nightly news.
Time is not on our side.
We don't have time to wait for it to crop up in your state. We need to know what is being genetically modified. Once that conversation starts to happen in Washington State, it can definitely be heard all over the country.
They understand that if they lose a state like Washington, game over.
In much the same way that my grandfather used his soap in order to get his message across, we're using our soap now to put a special I-522 label on there that explains what's going on in Washington State.
Dr. Bronner's has donated significantly to the Yes on 522 campaign. We are supporting this on the principle that we stand up for individuals, we stand up for people who might not feel that they have a voice, but we want to tell them that they do have a voice, and we need their voice.
This needs to come from the people. This needs to be grassroots. $10, $20, volunteering to phone bank. That's what's going to win this. We need to see everyone across the country stepping up.
Let's all support the citizens of Washington State.
One state will change the nation.
Go to yesson522.com for more information and to donate now.
So that was cool. It was published about a week ago, or on August 7th, 2013, by the Dr. Bronner's YouTube page. It states that in the text before the video that if passed, Washington State would become the first state to require a GMO labeling law. However, as you heard here on The Real News, back on June 4th, Connecticut was the first state to pass GMO labeling legislation. But kudos to them for standing up for the little guy and, basically saying that we don't want poison in our food, of course. A lot of, it's kind of a bad PR move to come out and say in a PSA that, you're being poisoned. Kind of might cause mass exodus or, that type of thing. But it doesn't really happen too often, thankfully. So, before the break, we talked about how there is talks between the government in the Philippines and the U.S. government to bring in troops so that they can have protection from China or aggressions from coming from China in the South China Sea. This coming after a August 8th report of more than 400 farmers coming from all over Baikal they stormed the ongoing field testing of golden rice at the Department of Agriculture Regional Field Unit Number 5 at Pili, Cameroon Sur. Farmers uprooted the genetically modified rice in order to stop the planned commercialization of golden rice. The farmers have decided to take action against the ongoing golden rice field trials. Golden rice is not an answer to the country's problem on hunger and malnutrition, said Bert Otter, a farmer and spokesperson of Sequal GMO. Sequal GMO is an alliance farmers, church people, students, academians, and consumers based in Baikal who are against GMOs and agrochemical transnational corporations' control on agriculture. Golden rice is genetically modified with genes coming from bacteria and corn to produce beta-carotene. Proponents said that golden rice will be used to address vitamin A deficiency or VAD. The project is being undertaken by the Philippine Rice Research Institute, or PhilRice, with field trials being conducted in Ilocos Norte, Isabela, Nueva Ecija, and Camarines Sur. Cases of VAD, however, are already declining in the country, according to data coming from DOST, FNRI. Author Otter stressed that the agrochemical TNCs and the U.S. are behind the push for adoption of the golden rice and other GMOs. U.S. product exports to the Philippines, which are derived from modern agricultural technology, increased more than 265% from 42 million in 2003 to 527 million in 2011. Soybean-based products account for most of the exported product, 67%, followed by feeds and fodder, 17%. In an interview, Philip Shull, agricultural counselor at the U.S. Embassy in Manila, said that the Philippines is a huge market which is growing every year, and that the U.S. government is concerned about misunderstanding GM crops and products. Golden rice patent is owned by agrochemical giant Syngenta. Agrochemical TNCs, which are protected and abetted by the U.S. government, gain millions of profit from GMOs, even at the expense of the health and livelihood of Filipino farmers and consumers. They don't care if it's unsafe as long as they get their profits. Such is the fate of GM corn farmers. Farmers who shifted to GM corn farming suffered the most as the price of GM seeds and other inputs skyrocketed. The farmers are now in debt. Most of them lose their land to corn traders because they are unable to pay. Once golden rice is commercialized, this will only lead to privatization of our rice. Agrochemical TNCs have been waiting for this opportunity to finally control the rice seed industry. This would mean more profit to them, as rice is the staple of Filipinos and the people of Asia, added Otter. The farmers quickly went to the field trial site, uprooted the GM rice, and buried it inside the field trial. Otter said that the field trials would only put the Filipinos' health and environment at risk. Golden rice field trials also put our traditional and native rice varieties at risk of contamination. Otter further said that, quote, last February we had a dialogue with officials from DAA RFU 5. After airing our concerns, they promised us that they will not conduct any golden rice field trials. However, they still continued these clandestine field trials. We are very concerned as news about feed testing will start this year and that the harvest will be used in these feed experiments. In China, the people have protested against the feed trials on children, prompting the proponents to compensate the affected families. We do not want our people, especially our children, to be used in these experiments, like Americans were since 1996 or even before that. Last May, the Court of Appeals ruled against the field testing of another GMO, the Bt. Bacillus thuringiensis eggplant, or Bt toxin, which is a genetically engineered toxin or pesticide that kills bugs once they try to eat the vegetables that you consume. Saying that the field trial violates the basic constitutional right of Filipinos to health and a balanced and healthy ecology, Bt eggplant is genetically modified to produce toxins against the fruit and shoot borer. The Court of Appeals stated that there is no full scientific evidence that will ascertain the safety of this product, and that there is no single law that governs the study, introduction, and use of GMOs. The court ordered the permanent cease of Bt along field trials and the protection, rehabilitation, and restoration of the environment. This should serve as a stern warning to those planning to conduct GM field trials in Baikal. What we need is a comprehensive and long-term solution to address hunger and malnutrition. Golden rice and GMOs in general will only aggravate the already dire condition of the small and resource-poor farmers. We call on the Department of Agriculture to immediately cancel golden rice and other GMO field testing in the country. We do not want golden rice, asserted Otter. So, how interesting it is that this story is coming out, and this is from a Filipino news site called Remate. It's been translated, but we'll post the link for you on the Facebook page. Check us out, facebook.com/The Real News Crew, news with a Z, on Occupy Boston Radio. so we're going to post that for you. But we just talked about how, Filipino officials are calling for a need for U.S. troops over in there. They need help from aggression from China. I thought China was our friend. I thought, Anyway, tonight's cancer cocktail. The World Cancer Research Fund has just completed a detailed review of more than 7,000 clinical studies covering links between diet and cancer. Its conclusion is rocking the health world with startling bluntness. Processed meats are too dangerous for human consumption. Consumers should stop buying and eating all processed meat products for the rest of their lives. Processed meats include bacon, sausage, hot dogs, sandwich meat, packaged ham, pepperoni, salami, and virtually all red meat used in frozen prepared meals. One of the worst offenders is hot dogs. So sodium nitrate and hot dogs are going to be our cancer cocktail for today on the Food News segment of The Real News. They are usually manufactured with a carcinogenic ingredient known as sodium nitrate. This is used as a color fixer by meat companies to turn packaged meats a bright red color so they look fresh. Unfortunately, sodium nitrate also results in the formation of cancer-causing nitrosamines in the human body, and this leads to a sharp increase in cancer risk for those who eat them. A 2005 University of Hawaii study found that processed meats increased the risk of pancreatic cancer by 67%. Another study revealed that every 50 grams of processed meat consumed daily increases the risk of colorectal cancer by 21%. These are alarming numbers. Note that these cancer risks do not come from eating fresh, non-processed meats. They only appear in people who regularly consume processed meat products containing sodium nitrate. Sodium nitrate appears predominantly in red meat products. You won't find it in chicken or fish products. Here's a short list of food items to check carefully for sodium nitrate and monosodium glutamate, or MSG, another dangerous additive. Beef jerky, bacon, sausage, hot dogs, sandwich meat, frozen pizza with meat, canned soups with meat, frozen meals with meat, ravioli and meat pasta foods, kids' meals containing red meat, sandwich meat used at popular restaurants, nearly all red meat sold at public schools, restaurants, hospitals, hotels, and theme parks. And of course, it goes without saying, also if you're in the military or at jails, they also serve the same kind of food that they serve in public schools, unfortunately. If sodium nitrate is so dangerous to humans, why do the FDA and USDA continue to allow this cancer-causing chemical to be used? The answer, of course, is that the food industry interests now dominate the actions by U.S. government regulators. The USDA, for example, tried to ban sodium nitrate in the late 1970s, but was overridden by the meat industry. It insisted the chemical was safe and accused the FDA or the USDA of trying to, quote, ban bacon, which would cause chaos, obviously. Today, the corporations that dominate American food and agricultural interests hold tremendous influence over the FDA and USDA. Consumers are offered no real protection from dangerous chemicals intentionally added to foods, medicines, and personal care products. You can protect yourself and your family from the dangers of processed meats by following a few simple rules. Always read ingredient labels. Don't buy anything made with sodium nitrate or monosodium glutamate. Don't eat red meat served by restaurants, schools, hospitals, hotels, or other institutions. And finally, eat more fresh produce with every meal. This is evidence. There's evidence that natural vitamin C found in citrus fruits and exotic berries like camu helps prevent the formation of cancer-causing nitrosamines, protecting you from devastating health effects of sodium nitrate in processed meats. The best defense, of course, is to avoid eating processed meats altogether. So that is from institutefornaturalliving.com and also Dream Healer on WordPress. But if you had any doubts and you want to cross-reference, you can also find information on nitrosamines on cancer.org. And other risks involved when you're eating meat and processed meats are heterocyclic amines, which occur when you cook meat, naturally occur in the meat when you cook it, or polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, which are also carcinogens, and that gets on the meat from cooking with charcoal and similar things like that. So, the USDA and the FDA, they regulate the food and the drugs that we eat, but who regulates our cosmetics? And the answer to that question is no one. So realpharmacy.com came out with an article this week, or in July, rather. This is from Dr. Mercola. It said new research has detected the presence of paraben esters in 99% of breast cancer tissues sampled. The study examined 40 women who were being treated for primary breast cancer. In 60% of cases, 5 of the different esters were present. Parabens are chemicals with estrogen-like properties, and estrogen is one of the hormones involved in the development of breast cancer. The study notes that, quote, variation was notable with respect to individual paraben esters, location within one breast and similar locations in different breasts. Overall median values in nanograms per gram tissue for the 160 tissue samples were highest for N-propylparaben and methylparaben. Levels were lower for N-butylparaben and ethylparaben and isobutylparaben. The source of the paraben cannot be identified, but paraben was measured in the 7 out of 40 I don't know what that means, patients who reported never having used underarm cosmetics in their lifetime. Oh, so I guess 7 out of the 40 patients who participated in the study were reported never having used underarm cosmetics. Sources and dangers of parabens. Deodorants and antiperspirants are some of the primary sources of parabens, but the fact that even those who reportedly never used them still had parabens in their breast tissue clearly demonstrates that these chemicals, regardless of what products they're added to, can and apparently will accumulate in breast tissue. It's important to recognize that whatever you spread on your skin can be absorbed in your body and potentially cause serious damage over time, as this research demonstrates. To learn more about the potential toxicity of your cosmetics, I urge you to review the EWG's extensive Skin Deep report. Parabens inhibit the growth of bacteria, yeast, and mold, and are used as preservatives. On the label, they may be listed as aluminum, antimony, arsenite, barium, cadmium, chromium, cobalt, copper, lead, mercury, nickel, selenite, tin, vanadate. These chemicals are commonly used in deodorants and antiperspirants, lotions and sunscreens, shampoos and conditioners, makeup, cosmetics, shaving gel, pharmaceutical drugs, toothpaste, and food additives. Studies have shown that parabens can affect your body, much like estrogens, which can lead to diminished muscle mass, extra fat storage, and male gynecomastia, or breast growth. Other studies besides the one featured here have also linked parabens to breast cancer. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency has linked methylparabens in particular to metabolic, developmental, hormonal, and neurological disorders, as well as various cancers. How you can avoid some of the most common culprits. You can avoid using parabens and other harmful chemicals. It requires becoming an avid label reader, being aware and beware that products boasting all natural labels can still contain harmful chemicals, including parabens. So make sure to check the list of ingredients. And as we learned last week, when PepsiCo was sued for $9 million for putting artificial and synthetic ingredients in their naked juice that was purportedly, they advertised that they were all natural, non-GMO. It turns out it was quite the opposite, that they had synthetic ingredients and they also had a patented fiber from Japan. So even if you do read the labels, it's even more important to go online or make phone calls and research, where exactly that company is coming from. Buycott.com is an app, BUYCOTT, that you can download into your smartphone, and you can scan barcodes and labels of different products and find out what the parent company is, and if the parent company links back to these, agricultural chemical companies, you can find out, or healthcare industry, Coke Industries, Monsanto, Syngenta, Walmart, all those bad guys. You can find out if they're a parent company of whatever products you're using, and if that's the case, then you probably can't trust what's in the bottle or packaging. So, coming up on future episodes of The Real News, we are going to be advertising or, just getting the word out there for products and stuff. So if you have a company that's run by small businesses or, family-owned company, veteran-owned companies, that demonstrate, what it means to be local, what it means to be sustainable, and, conscious, socially conscious, and of social justice issues like these, please let us know and like us on our Facebook page. We have great news. We're up to 194 likes. So we only need 6 more likes to make it to 200. So that would be a milestone for us, and we'd really appreciate it if you help us out with that. Anyway, I wanted to leave you tonight with some cool sound bites because, we're here in the studio beforehand and we have some great conversations that never make it to air. So I thought that it would be interesting if we aired one of those special, impromptu conversations for you. Because a lot of times the stuff that we talk about doesn't end up getting covered here on The Real News. And, there's a lot of news and it comes in too fast. And we do what we can in the small time allotted. So I'm going to bring that up for you. This month, Obama's EPA gives BP exemption to dump mercury in the Great Lakes. I think we reported on this a few weeks ago, where children were coming out of the lake with some mysterious silvery substance on them. And this is from the Thom Hartmann program. So, as reported by the Chicago Tribune, Indiana gave BP's newly expanded refinery in Whiting, Indiana, which is now one of the largest in the country, until 2012 to meet federal limitations on mercury disposal. But BP failed to comply. Federal standards limit mercury discharge to 0.08 of a pound annually, but state and federal records show that the BP refinery has discharged between 1/10 of a pound and 2 pounds of mercury into Lake Michigan every year since 2005. Millions of residents of Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, and Wisconsin, as well as tourists, receive drinking water from Lake Michigan, and countless more use the lake for fishing, water sports, and swimming. Mercury contamination is already a known and dangerous reality in many of the fish in the Great Lakes. Consuming fish contaminated by mercury can be damaging for developing brains and nervous systems in infants and young children, and can cause neurological issues in adults. The millions of people who rely on Lake Michigan for drinking water can't wait for Indiana regulators to take action. The recent waiver Indiana regulators gave to BP shows that they are unwilling to enforce federal law, and that's why we must demand the Federal Environmental Protection Agency take action now. Executives at BP are counting on their mercury pollution problem remaining an issue. They can strong arm Indiana's regulators into ignoring. And there's a petition on credoaction.com. Take a stand for Lake Michigan. Tell the EPA no more mercury dumping exemption. So you want to go ahead and sign that. And again, we're going to have these links for you on the Facebook page. We have some more good news regarding, well, good news and bad news regarding BP and prosecution and all that good, headache stuff. So I'm going to bring that up for you. And we're coming up on the last 15 minutes of the show. Again, this is The Real News here on Occupy Boston Radio. Radio for the 99%, home of the horizontal democracy. You want to visit our Facebook page, www.facebook.com/The The Real News Crew. News with a Z. Anyway, British oil giant BP sued the U.S. government on Monday over its decision to bar the company from new federal contracts to supply fuel and other services following the company's agreement to plead guilty to manslaughter and obstruction charges in connection with the 2010 Gulf of Mexico oil spill disaster. Yeah. So they just want to make their money back. Like, what do you mean? We're an oil company. You're going to make an example of us? I mean, I wonder if it was ExxonMobil, if the case would be the same. But I digress. And our final story for the evening is the new Glass-Steagall. We brought you this story back in July. But I recently met with a member of the LaRouche Political Action Committee. And she's also a member or a staff writer for the Executive Intelligence Review out of Washington, D.C. And she expressed interest in coming on our show and doing an interview. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the Glass-Steagall, Elizabeth Warren introduced the 21st Century Glass-Steagall Act of 2013. It was co-sponsored by Senators McCain, Cantwell, and King. The new bill mirrors the original 1933 Glass-Steagall Act, which separated traditional banking activity like checking and lending from the riskier activity investment banking like derivatives. The original law was repealed in 1999 by the Graham-Leach-Bliley Act. Though Glass-Steagall had been eroding for years leading up to that point, Graham-Leach-Bliley, along with several laws passed during that era, allowed big banks to transform into mega banks, creating too big to fail. To illustrate, the chart below, or this chart on this website, shows that from 1935 to 1990, the three biggest banks averaged around 10% of total bank assets. But by 2009, they suddenly had over 40. This new bill from Senator Warren will reverse this trend and will make the banks even smaller. After all, the three biggest banks, Chase, Bank of America, and Citi, are all bloated conglomerate banks that have enormous traditional and investment subsidiaries. So these banks wouldn't be able to continue as they're currently instituted under the new Glass-Steagall Act. Instead, these mega banks would be broken up into much smaller firms. What's more, the new Glass-Steagall Act will make it so banks cannot gamble with derivatives using depositors' money as they do today. Currently, depositors at banks like Chase, Bank of America, or Citi implicitly use their money to help these banks make amplified bets that have the potential to cause another global meltdown. Reintroducing Glass-Steagall will make it so depositors' money cannot be used for the derivatives market. It would be a major step towards restoring sanity to Wall Street. So that's some good news coming from Washington. And we look forward to speaking with our guest in future episodes of The Real News. So we did want to end with some pre-show things. Here we go. It's pretty fun. We can do this. Here you go. This is from last week. On the 6th, we had some great conversations. So here's your chance to listen in and hear what we talk about. All right.
Alrighty then.
We're recording.
Officially started.
What are we recording?
Do you want headphones?
No, I'm cool. You know.
I know, you should take headphones, actually.
Rebel.
It's always nice
Rebel.
to hear yourself.
Somebody's chewing.
It's always nice to hear yourself.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so August 6, 2013, the anniversary of Hiroshima.
Hiroshima. We dropped a big bomb. An atomic bomb. Yes, it was.
Not just one.
Well, no, there was two.
Nagasaki.
Nagasaki happened 3 days later.
Mm-hmm.
Nagasaki was 3 days later, so we can talk about that in 3 days. But
And yes, and that anniversary is not any less important or significant.
no, but not by any means. It was 50 years ago, and actually, it's good to take notice and recognize that such an awful thing happened. Went to a protest a little earlier today with some members of Veterans for Peace. Good
Bob?
people. Bob wasn't there though. I was kind of bumming about
Oh.
it. Bob wasn't there. Bob is traveling a boot, so to speak.
The National Convention, Veterans for Peace. Over
Yeah. Veterans for Peace. He's a member anyway. So I saw a couple other Veterans for Peace that I do know, and it was kind of a cool thing. There was some music. There were drums. There was a couple people spoke. There were some professors that made some speeches talking about the humanitarian risk, or what is at risk as far as health-wise and whatnot with people, should there be a nuclear war, so to speak, between small countries.
No,
And,
never. What?
well, he gave the example of, for example, this week, I guess there's been some skirmishes that have been going on between Pakistan and India, which are both small nuclear powers.
Mm-hmm.
And, he was talking about the fact that the small nuclear ability that they do have in comparison with, United States or Russia, who could blow up the world, 200 times over and over again.
I thought it was only 7 times.
I don't know. I'm exaggerating on that part. But, no, his point was that, just even on a small, limited basis, you're talking about the death of, I forgot how many millions of people. It was like 200 million people or something like that.
As well.
Yeah.
It's not to say that just those people are affected. That's something that resonates.
Yeah.
And, nuclear clouds and the blast and debris obviously impacts areas surrounding.
Right.
So it's,
Well,
It affects all of us. I mean, we all have a piece
Yeah.
of Chernobyl in
Well,
us.
exactly, and it also affects the weather. The Earth would be kind of cloud covered,
Barren.
blocking the sun
Soil
for. I think he said for a
around.
decade. The soil, or not the soil, but the sun would be blocked for, which we would. I don't know how we would survive through that, but that pretty much
Nuclear winter.
ends planthood. Or
Yeah,
plants,
no,
you know
I
what
would
mean?
imagine.
So no corn crops.
And
for a
then
while.
where does our oxygen come from if not from the plants?
Exactly. Now you're seeing the impact. It ends up affecting many other people, and there'd have to be
Everything.
some sort of a way we'd come up with something that God only knows. But nonetheless,
Living underground or finding Earth 2.
Maybe that's how it happens. Who knows?
Wait, now I heard you a little earlier. Did you mention that today marks the 50th anniversary of Hiroshima or Hiroshima? Is it the 50th?
No.
No, it's
Oh,
actually,
wait, no, that was
in
it was
1945.
1945. So
All right,
we
yeah,
were-
no, recent history,
there's
around
another
50
thing.
years. But
Yeah,
that's
Equal
still recent
Voting
history.
Rights Act.
Yes, it was actually, we were talking about this as well. Actually, we didn't get to talk. He doesn't know yet. But
Yeah.
today is the 50th anniversary of the signing of the Equal Voting Rights Act, which is one of the last things that Martin Luther King was present for. It was Lyndon Johnson that had signed that under his presidency, I guess you could
Lyndon B. Johnson, that guy.
say. Yes, Lyndon Baines Johnson. But nonetheless, it's something where it's kind of a historic day, especially with 2 weeks ago when you had the Supreme Court that basically gutted the Equal Voting Rights Act. And then you have all these states in the South. You got Alabama. You've got there's like 5 or 6 states that are trying to enact new laws in a hurry as a result of that, in order to suppress the vote of segments of our society.
Yeah.
And now coming up in a couple of weeks here, actually, also as another thing that kind of ties in with these anniversaries, it's also going to be the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington, which was for, I believe, it was jobs and inequality is what it was at that point. And I believe at that point what was going on with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he was trying to include the fight of the poor at that point, right before he was assassinated too.
Yeah, he was
And
known to unify struggles.
and that was part of that. And I don't know. So a lot of history going on. 50th anniversary. There's a lot of stuff going on.
I love it. I love it, and it's a time to realize that hey, it's not a bad time to become active, involved, and more or less aware of history and the repetition thereof. I was actually reading recently, or actually watching, rather, on YouTube, Oprah Winfrey addressing. I know people are sick and tired of the Trayvon Martin case. Not sick and tired of it, but all too aware about it. Just the similarities between that and the Emmett Till case, almost a parallel.
Can we not talk about that tonight on the show?
Oh no, not at all. Just in reference, obviously, to the fact that history is repetitive, and these struggles do remain, and we do need to unify and become active and involved, and truly, encouraged to unify and take a stand, regardless of the means, whether you are Malcolm X radical or Martin Luther King Jr. liberal, or just the spokesperson.
Un pueblo unido. What's the second part? I don't remember how to say the second part. Forgive me.
I don't know that. I know un pueblo unido is.
I think it all
people
comes.
united.
It comes with an attitude that's reinforced by the media and culture. That band Fun. They won a Grammy. Their new song. One of their new songs is "Carry On." May your feet be the sound of your feet upon the ground or something. Right. Carry on. What are the other lyrics to that song? When you're lost and you're down. I don't know. Yeah, let's find the lyrics for that.
I don't know.
You know what? We could just play it. Actually, my computer is being really dumb right now.
Anyhow,
so the whole
those are
Hiroshima. I love it. This time of year is also right before students, get ready to get off and into the dorm rooms, and it's also the time of year when people gear up to throw on a fleece and a sweater in New England.
There's another week yet, isn't there?
Yeah, of course. Rewind time. Let summer start all over again.
It's gone.
It's funny. I've seen an increase in bee population recently, and I'm just thinking. I usually see a lot of bees in the spring.
Huge bee, and then I saw little tiny bees.
Yeah, I usually see bees in the spring, but for some reason I've seen a lot of them just now. I'm just starting to notice them, and I'm like, weird.
So this is the song.
Well, I woke up to the sound of silence.
I really just don't like this.
Do you want to grab the lyrics, or you don't like it?
No, I don't. The lyrics are on here.
Lay your clothes down on the floor. Close the door. Hold the phone. Show me how. No one's ever gonna stop you now.
We are not. Now. This is the part. We are not the shining stars. This I know. I never said we are. See, I think everybody is a shining star, and I think everybody, or if they don't feel like it, then they have the potential within them to be a shining star. If they can just find what their true gift is and use it towards the greater good. But so that pisses me off. It's like oh yeah, we're not. It's like kind of indoctrination. Because it's so catchy and it pisses me off. But anyway, so here's the rest of it.
Though I've never been through hell like that, I've closed enough windows to know you can never look back.
Bullshit. I'm sorry. Though I've never been through hell like that, I've closed enough windows to know you can never look back. This guy's basically saying I have no idea because I've never been through that. But
can I guess that this guy wears skinny jeans?
Yeah.
Is that a safe assumption?
See, no, but you're combating judgmentalism with more judgment.
I'm just asking the question.
Is that a word, judgmentalism?
I'm asking the question.
I don't know. Though I've never been through hell like that, I've closed enough windows to know you can never look back. But no, we're talking about history repeating itself and how the importance of looking back.
It really is. It needs to be.
Yeah.
Hindsight is 20/20. I mean, everybody's all right. So everybody is a shining star, and everybody has a journey, and everybody, I believe relationships to be independent and individual of each other. And when you get into relativity and media and interconnectivity and all that, you think about the fact that we are all individuals. We are part of a grand scheme. So everybody has a story, but the world itself is also a story.
Yeah.
And when you can see the bigger picture and you remove yourself from I don't know, from the selfish approach, you kind of start to realize that hindsight's 2020. Why am I going to keep my eyes in the rear view if I can keep driving? But the things I should be aware of are the things that I saw in my rear view mirror that definitely stood out to me. So when there's injustices that stand out repeating themselves, when there's objects repeating themselves, I'm sorry to use the analogy again, the Emmett Till and the Trayvon Martin. When these parallels exist, you kind of start to scratch your head and say, really? Are we going to do this again? And what side do I stand on this time? Because again, the last thing I'm going to have to do is tell my children I didn't take part in, progress.
You won't be remembered for what you didn't do.
Yeah, exactly. And at the end of the day, like I said, in whatever religion you are, so I'm Christian, I believe, you're forgiven as long as you repent and you seek forgiveness. And obviously, again, you're not going to regret the things you did as long as you can be forgiven, but you will regret the things you didn't do. Yeah. Oh, you need to seek forgiveness, obviously, and repent.
Yeah.
And there's obviously, everybody has a conscience. You cannot burn the conscience.
You can't just be like, forgive me? Bat your eyelashes.
Oh, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. I've never agreed with that. I mean, seriously, on death row, somebody who is a mass murderer going to be like, I found God. God, please forgive me.
Let's talk about that. You guys know about Stanley Tookie Williams? You've never seen the Redemption movie?
You have to believe in the mercy. You have to believe.
Yeah, you have to believe in redemption, mercy, and forgiveness because ultimately,
it's all the same thing.
Ultimately, comprehending the wrong is really the only way to get it right. Because, Thomas Edison, the example, he had to, F up 1,000 times before he got it right that one time.
Actually,
so it took.
Actually, didn't you screw somebody else out of it?
I'm sure he did. I'm sure. So he's the one with the credit. You know how things go down in history books.
Yeah.
Well, every other president obviously shouldn't get credit for what they get to it either.
Oh, that's true.
Bill Clinton with his golden dollar. I mean, I hate to say it, that was Reaganomics right there. No.
Anyway.
Like you said, history and becoming a part of history, and every day is history, people. So when you consider the fact that, again, today will be a moment in history 50 years from now, are you going to be remembered as the one who said, oh, we bombed Hiroshima, yes, with all this nationalism and pride, without the compassion for the people impacted and the effect on Earth?
I think that it's important to acknowledge those things because a lot of us, if it's a negative aspect of our personality or our collective personality, to not acknowledge it means to pretend that it doesn't exist. I don't think that's being true to ourselves, let alone anybody else.
Ignorance is bliss. We know it well. Funny thing, some people live by the motto, see no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil. And they think they're happy. But truth is, you kind of gotta speak up.
Oh my God.
No.
No. Oh no. You did it.
What YouTube videos or who's that?
That's Meatloaf.
Meatloaf? That's a Meatloaf.
Like paradise by the dashboard lights.
Oh yeah.
Ain't no doubt about it. Something about love for lasting or something.
I'll go home and watch this late at night and just laugh with you guys.
Meatloaf is a pimp. Look at him. He's a pimp.
Oh, look at that vest.
Yeah. Doesn't he have does one of his fists say love and the other one say hate?
What's going on outside, man? All right, so that was last week before the show. We have a good time here in the studio, as you have heard. But yeah, the real news can be fun. A lot of people, they say, oh, how can you focus on all that stuff? Doesn't it weigh you down? And isn't it so negative? And I say, you know what? There's nothing more positive than, finding out what's wrong with America, what's wrong with the world, so that we can fix it. So that's what we're all about here in the Real News. We're all about education and getting the word out there so you can protect yourselves That's what the First Amendment's all about. That's what the freedom of speech and the freedom of press is all about. We're supposed to be the guardians of public interest, and where the mainstream media falls short, we try to pick up the slack here on The Real News, on OBR.FM, Occupy Boston Radio, radio for the 99%, home of the horizontal democracy. We're also on satellite XM, Sirius XM satellite radio on the internet options. Check us out. We're also on Showcast Radio on Winamp under the Revolution category. We're broadcasting to you live at 96 kilobytes per second. Today is August 13th, 2013. And this has been Andrea signing off. We'll see you next week on Tuesday, where we'll have more news for you that's buried or distorted by the corporate media. Thanks for tuning in. See you next week at 9:30.